My dear friends, let us consider a peculiar hour, that still and holy time between the hours of 3 and 5 in the morning. It is an hour seldom loved and rarely understood. The world sleeps, yet you are awake, not by accident, perhaps, but by invitation. Now, some may say it is mere restlessness or the residue of anxiety. But what if this interruption is not chaos, but calling? What if your soul stirs because something or someone is knocking gently at the door of your consciousness? You see, we are so used to interpreting all things through the noise of the day, through our busy logic and linear plans. But God, the universe, or that still small voice within it, often speaks in silence, in the hush before dawn. It comes not with thunder, but with a whisper. When you find yourself waking between the hours of 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., it's tempting to think something has gone wrong. The mind races. Perhaps it's stress, perhaps restlessness, maybe even an overactive imagination or a late meal. But what if we dared to look at it differently? What if this waking is not a sign of dysfunction, but a divine interruption, not a problem to solve, but an invitation to respond? There is something deeply spiritual about that early morning hush. The world is still, the streets are empty, even the birds have not yet begun to sing. In that silence, time itself feels suspended. You are awake, and everything else is asleep. It is in these rare moments that the soul often finds its clearest voice. The noise of the day, the obligations, the expectations, the endless distractions, has not yet returned. And so, when you wake up at such an hour, ask not, "Why am I awake?" but instead, "What is this moment asking of me?" We are often trained to believe that waking up in the night is inconvenient, even unhealthy. But throughout history, people have treated this early hour with reverence. Monks would rise for their first prayers in the pre-dawn dark. Mystics, poets, and prophets have long spoken of divine encounters and insights arriving in the small hours. Even in Scripture, one finds that many of the great encounters with the divine happen not in daylight, but in the quiet of the night. Jacob wrestled with the angel until the breaking of the dawn. Samuel heard the voice of God while lying when the world sleeps, and you find yourself awake between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. You are given access to a rare and sacred silence. This silence is not merely the absence of noise. It is a spacious stillness, a clearing in the wilderness of life where you can finally hear your own soul speak. In our busy, overstimulated existence, we are constantly pulled outward. Our days are consumed with conversations, obligations, and constant connection to devices and demands. But in the quiet hours before dawn, all of that fades. The outside world releases its grip, and something within begins to stir. This is the moment to turn inward and reconnect with the deepest part of yourself, the part that knows, intuitively and quietly, who you are and what you need. Most people never pause long enough to hear that voice. They are too busy chasing what others say they should want, following noise instead of truth. But if you are awake in this hour, perhaps it is because your soul is knocking gently on the door of your attention, asking you to come home. To align with your inner self in this hour means to give space to the questions that matter. It is not about solving problems or making plans. It is about returning to presence, to honesty, to a kind of radical stillness where you can observe your own thoughts without judgment. You begin to notice how you feel, not how you pretend to feel for others, but how you truly feel when no one is watching. You can sit with your discomfort, your longing, your gratitude, your fears, and allow them all to rise to the surface. This is not a time for distraction. It is not a time to reach for your phone or drown out the silence with artificial noise. It is a time to listen, to really listen, to what is unfolding inside you. Your inner self does not shout. It whispers, and that whisper becomes most audible when the world goes quiet. The questions you may have avoided during the day now surface with clarity. Am I living in alignment with my values? Have I betrayed something essential in myself? What am I afraid of? What have I been too busy to feel? The beauty of this hour is that you are not performing for anyone. There is no one to impress, no audience to please. You are alone, and in that solitude the masks come off. You can see yourself more clearly, both your beauty and your brokenness, and both are welcome. The alignment comes not from fixing yourself or achieving something, but from accepting the truth of who you are right now in this moment. From this place of honesty, a quiet strength begins when you find yourself awake between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. There's an uncanny stillness that wraps around everything. It's not just quiet, it's holy. The distractions of the day have dissolved, the demands of life have paused, and all the noise has fallen away. It's in this sacred hush that you are offered something most people never notice, a chance to speak, not outwardly to the world, but inwardly to the divine. This is a time not meant for scrolling, reacting, or analyzing, but for communing, and that communion begins not with thought, but with presence, and from that presence with speech. But this speech is not like the conversations of the day. It is not small talk or even personal chatter. It is raw, unfiltered, real. In these early hours, there's no one to impress, no need to pretend. You can speak with trembling honesty. You can admit your fears, your doubts, your guilt, your longing. You can confess your confusion, your loneliness, or your gratitude. And when you speak in that way, from that place, you open a channel that is rarely accessed in the rush and repetition of everyday life. Something begins to shift. Not when you are awake between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. After the world has gone quiet and your mind begins to settle, you may find that something subtle yet powerful is already happening. It's easy to assume that you are simply awake by chance, that perhaps stress or habit has stirred you. But if you are willing to be still long enough, if you resist the impulse to distract or numb yourself, you may realize something astonishing. The answer you've been searching for is already whispering within. We live in a world that teaches us to look outward for direction. We search for validation, seek opinions, chase after clarity through noise. We read books, ask friends, consult experts, hoping someone will finally tell us what to do or how to feel. And while those voices may sometimes offer guidance, they often drown out the quiet wisdom that has always lived inside us. The truth is, you are not without guidance. You are not lost. It is only that you have not been still enough to hear what's already there. The early morning hours strip away everything unnecessary. The ego is quiet, the world is distant, and the soul begins to breathe more freely. In this state, your inner voice, the one you've ignored, doubted, or silenced, starts to rise to the surface. It doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it whispers, and you have to lean in to hear it. That whisper may come in the form of a sudden knowing, a quiet realization, or even a gentle sense of peace. It might not give you a detailed answer, but it will give you a direction. And that is enough, because once you are aligned with your inner compass, even small steps become sacred. The problem is not that wisdom is missing, but that we are often too busy to listen. We assume we need to figure things out, when in reality we need to become quiet enough to allow clarity to surface. Listening to the whisper within is not passive. It is one of the most active and courageous things you can do. In the hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., when distractions fade and your usual defenses rest, the inner voice becomes more audible, not louder, but clearer. And though it may not come with thunder or flashing signs, it speaks with an authority that feels ancient, intimate, and unmistakably yours. The world tells you to hustle, to chase, to fix, but this voice calls you to return, to remember, to be. And if you truly listen, it can redirect your entire life. Often, we mistake confusion for a lack of answers, when in truth, it's a lack of listening. The noise of modern life is deafening. Every hour we are bombarded with opinions, expectations, comparisons, and distractions. We are told who we should be, what we should want, and how we should feel. Over time, our inner compass, the one that points us toward what is truly right for us, becomes buried beneath layers of noise, but it never disappears. It waits patiently. It waits for silence. It waits for stillness. It waits for you. That's why this specific time of night, this quiet window between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., is so powerful. It gives you a unique chance to shut out the world and tune back into the frequency of your own truth. Not the truth others have handed you, but the one that rises from the deepest parts of who you are. And when you begin to hear it, not just mentally, but soulfully, you will notice that much of your stress, because now you are not operating from fear, confusion, or external pressure. You are moving from alignment. Waking between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. is not just a strange occurrence or a biological hiccup. It's a sacred opening, a portal into deeper awareness. When you listen closely during this time, you begin to recognize that life is always trying to speak to you. The answers you need, the clarity you seek, the peace you long for, they are not locked in some distant future or held by someone else. They are already within you, gently waiting for a moment of your attention. The final and perhaps most important realization is this: the most powerful transformations happen not through action alone, but through awareness. In our waking hours, we are so often fixated on solving problems, chasing goals, fixing situations. But sometimes, life asks something different of us. It asks us to pause, to look inward, and to become still enough to receive. This stillness, this internal listening, is not passive. It is a deliberate, brave choice to stop running and finally face the truth about who we are, what we want, what we fear, and what we know deep down to be right. During these early hours, you have a rare chance to reset, not your schedule, but your spirit. The decisions made in this state are not rushed or reactive. They come from a place of wholeness. You begin to realize that so much of what you chase during the day is rooted in a deeper desire for meaning, for connection, for peace, and that those things are never found in the noise. They are found in the quiet. They are found here. So when you wake between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., do not rush to fix the disturbance. Do not reach for a screen or distract yourself from the discomfort. Instead, surrender to the moment. Let the silence speak. Let your breath guide you inward. Let your thoughts rise and fall without resistance. And above all, listen, because in that quiet, something within you already knows the next step. So now, my dear friend, if you ever find yourself awake between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., do not curse the interruption. Do not label it as mere insomnia or dismiss it as random restlessness. Instead, see it as what it truly is, a sacred invitation, a moment carved out by something greater so you may return to yourself. In this quiet hour, when the world is stepped aside, you are given access to a deeper space, a sanctuary where your soul can finally breathe, speak, and be heard. It is not the hour of fear, but the hour of truth. You are not being haunted. You are being called. Be still and recognize that this time is not empty. It is full of meaning. Choose to listen. Choose to align. Choose to speak from the deepest part of you and allow the silence to answer. These are not tasks to tick off. They are sacred practices, and when you honor them, something inside you shifts. You begin to wake up not just from sleep, but from numbness, from noise, from disconnection. And slowly, without even realizing it, you will begin to move through your days with greater peace, deeper clarity, and a stronger sense of purpose. Not because life has changed, but because you have. You have remembered what most people forget, that the quietest hours often hold the loudest truths. So the next time you wake between 3 and 5 a.m., do not go back to sleep too quickly. There is a message waiting, and it is written in the language of stillness, spoken by the voice within, and heard only by those who are finally ready to listen.